Hello, friends of the Real Supernatural Cases channel. Welcome to another scary episode. If you like real and suspenseful stories, you are in the right place. Before we begin, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. Let's get started. Today, we are going to tell the story of the Old Man in a Hat, a chilling case that happened in the city of Shadow Hills, in the United States. This city, located in the state of Oregon, was known for its bucolic landscapes and the tranquility of a typical small town. It all started on a farm in the city, called Golden Fields, owned by the Parker family. The family was composed of the couple, John and Emily Parker, and their two children, Matthew and Lucy. They lived a peaceful and happy life, taking care of their land and animals. One day, a rumor began to spread among the residents of Shadow Hills. An old man in a hat was wandering on the road near the Parker's farm. Some said that the old man had been walking on the road for years, but no one knew for sure who he was or where he came from. The residents of Shadow Hills were a close-knit community, and everyone knew each other. So the presence of a stranger caused some unease. People began to avoid passing by the road, especially at night, afraid of what they might find. The mystery of the old man in a hat grew, and the stories became increasingly frightening. They said he was a ghost, a supernatural entity that wandered the road as a result of some past tragedy. One night, the Parker's eldest son, Matthew, was riding his bike home after a long day of work in the field. The sun had already set, and darkness enveloped the road. As it got darker, fear grew in his heart. He remembered the rumors about the old man in a hat and prayed to make it home safely. Suddenly, on the horizon, Matthew saw a shadowy figure slowly walking along the edge of the road. It was an old man, with an aged hat and shabby clothes. Despite his racing heart, Matthew decided to face his fear and approach the mysterious figure. When Matthew was just a few meters from the man, he stopped walking. The old man in a hat raised his head and looked directly into Matthew's eyes. At that moment, the young man felt a supernatural presence, as if something evil was taking over his body. He couldn't move or scream for help. After a few seconds that seemed like an eternity, the old man in a hat turned and continued walking down the road, disappearing into the darkness. Finally, Matthew was able to move and ran home, desperate. He told his parents what had happened, but they thought it was just his imagination. Matthew's story spread throughout the town, and people became even more frightened. Some residents, led by Bill Thompson, the town sheriff, decided to investigate the case of the old man in a hat. They formed a search group and began to search the area near the Parker's farm, hoping to find some clue about the mysterious man. On the third day of the search, the group found an abandoned house in the middle of the forest, a few kilometers from the road. They decided to investigate, thinking that perhaps the old man in a hat was living there. The house was in terrible condition, and the smell of mold and dampness filled the air. They entered cautiously, lighting their way with flashlights. On the ground, they found old objects, such as clothes, furniture, and household items. There was a sinister energy in the environment, and everyone felt extremely uncomfortable. While exploring the house, they realized there was a locked room. Bill, the sheriff, broke down the door, and they entered the room. Inside, they found a dusty diary on a desk. The diary belonged to a man named Thomas Smith, who had lived in the house many years before. As they read the pages, they discovered that Thomas had lost his wife and children in a terrible fire on the neighboring farm. Consumed by grief and anger, Thomas began to wander the road, seeking revenge against those who, according to him, were responsible for the tragedy. It was believed that Thomas had died years ago, but his presence seemed to haunt the region. The residents of Shadow Hills became even more terrified by the discovery. They believed that Thomas's spirit, the old man in a hat, continued to wander the road in search of revenge. The town was in panic, and people barely left their homes, afraid of encountering the terrifying figure. John Parker, concerned about his family's safety, decided to seek help from a paranormal expert named Robert Grant. Robert was known for solving supernatural cases and freeing communities from fear and hauntings. When Robert arrived in Shadow Hills, he began to study the case and gather information about Thomas Smith and his tragic story. After a few days of research and observations, Robert concluded that Thomas's spirit was trapped between the worlds of the living and the dead, unable to move on due to the pain and anger he still felt. Robert knew that the only way to free the town from fear and give peace to Thomas was to help him move on. With the help of the residents, they organized a ceremony in the abandoned house, in which they asked for forgiveness from Thomas for all he had suffered and begged for his spirit to find peace. That night, the entire town gathered for the ceremony, and everyone felt Thomas's presence among them. At the end of the ritual, a bright light appeared in the sky, illuminating the abandoned house. It was as if Thomas's spirit had finally found the peace he was seeking and was ready to move on. The light slowly disappeared, leaving a feeling of relief and tranquility in the air. After the ceremony, sightings of the old man in a hat ceased. The residents of Shadow Hills returned to their normal lives, free from the fear and hauntings that had terrorized the town for so long. The story of the old man in a hat became a legend in the town of Shadow Hills, a reminder of the tragedies of the past and the ability of a community to come together to overcome fear and suffering. Golden Fields Farm prospered, and the Parker family lived in peace, always remembering those events that changed their lives forever. And so ends the true story of the old man in a hat and the struggle of a community to free itself from the supernatural and fear. Did you like this story? Leave a like and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the Real Supernatural Cases channel for more chilling stories like this one. See you next time, friends.